welcome to the Craft and Calling podcast. I am your host, Christine Marie. Y'all, I am so excited to be joined by Mike Amatulli. And even just Mike, your name, the Italian flair to your name is very fun to say. And we've already had a couple good conversations leading up to preparation for our conversation today. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Mike, we met a couple weeks ago. It was actually just before you went abroad with your new wifey on your honeymoon. And I do want to hear about that at some point. But you are the co-founder and owner of Prime Digital, and what you guys are doing on the SEO side for trades businesses is really, really remarkable. And you're also doing a lot as it pertains to not just search engines, but answer engines, in terms of really allowing for these businesses to get found on. And for those of you who are listening, it's answer engines are ChatGPT, Claude, Perplex, all the AI bots that you hear about. And so you're doing a lot there that's making a big impact for trades businesses. But the other thing that I really want to lean into today more specifically is how you're leveraging AI in your internal team. And the story you mentioned, even just what you did last week, was like, okay, we need to talk about this. Because for a lot of companies, it's, okay, I know I need to bring AI in. What do I even do? How do I even start? And so I'd love for you to kind of give some context around what you had your team do last week and then what the next steps were.
Yeah, of course. We're always trying to audit and improve the business. I'm always trying to avoid getting into the weeds and working alongside the team. I should really be working on the business. So how I do that is by constantly auditing it, seeing what the team's doing. We're constantly, our SEO process is ever evolving. We're always kind of riding the wave with Google, how their algorithm's changing, where we're seeing impacts and rankings. So we have to constantly update, how we fulfill for clients and what tactics are working and stuff like that. So really what we were trying to do is just look at, all right, what is everybody doing? What is a time suck? What is, not really a revenue generating task, or, something that's not really a high impact task. And by identifying that, then we can look at, all right, what can AI take over or handle for you? And then you're just that kind of QA, quality assurance layer. Or can we just completely automate it?
Mm-hmm.
And even when you're trying to figure these things out, that's kind of where going back and forth with AI kind of comes into play. And I use all of them. I use ChatGPT, I use Grok, Claude, I use Perplexity, anything I can get my hands on, just see what is it good at and what am I comfortable with going back and forth. And personally, Claude is my orchestrator. That is hooked up to everything. Everyone has their preference, but that's kind of what I use the most.
Nice. Well, and we've been talking more about just honestly starting with the basics here on the Craft and Calling. And so I'd be excited to hear your thoughts on Claude. And when you're saying using it more so for orchestrating, and what does that look like in terms of if somebody was like, okay, I want to try Claude, obviously you have to create an account. I really recommend the paid version for ChatGPT. What are your thoughts on Claude? Is the free version ample to start?
Yeah, I actually used the free version for a while before I decided to dig my heels in more and start using it more. Then a paid account is helpful, because if you're using it more, you need more credits, higher usage. So you will need a paid plan if you really start to use it for everything.
Right.
Especially if you decide to dip your toe into the coding water and use Claude Code and stuff, then it's all right, that consumes usage, regular Claude consumes usage and stuff. So if I was starting fresh with Claude, you kind of want to, what we're doing right now, you want Claude to interview you. I kind of recently learned that as a best practice, because if you're going to be using it for your company, Claude knows everything, knows everyone on my team's name, what they do. It knows our clients. It knows, Claude can learn skills. For people that don't know, you can create skills for Claude. So the most basic example I have is a brand kit skill. So my agency's colors are black and blue. So anytime I'm putting a report together or something, it knows to use the brand kit skill to design it the way that I want it to come out for with
Love
our
that.
agency's branding. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So like just have it interview you, ask like 30 questions and literally just like completely like give
Mm.
it everything from A to Z, who you serve, what services you offer. If there is a particular task that you're trying to improve or like a process you're trying to improve, like don't hold back. Go like all the ins and outs, and then let it come up with some options. Like it's very easy to just go back and forth.
So good. And so I want to get in the weeds here because I really want this to be super actionable. So does each person on your team have their own separate Claude account, or do you have a company-wide account?
Right now, everybody is kind of working out of the same account.
Okay.
Yeah, which I guess is good. There's pros and cons to that. The pros are, um, I can see what my team is like. I can see my team's chats. I can see conversations happening. I can see what they're working on, which is good because not that I'm like constantly micromanaging or I'm like
Right.
checking in on them, but if I found something this morning and I was like, hey, I thought we like we're using a different tool for the chat that
Mm,
was happening. Like, hey, there's a better way. There's a faster way to
is
do
it?
that. Don't
Yeah.
use this. Use this. So little things like that were just helpful, and it's just if everyone's logged into the same account, and I was like having a conversation with Claude, and I want to show someone on my team like, hey, here's something that I just worked out. I can just copy that chat link and send it to them, and they're already logged into that same account, so they could just easily have it open up on a browser, and they could see exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I really like, especially as you're in these early stages of getting to know the tools and helping your
Mhm.
team learn how to use the tools. I
Yeah.
love the visibility. And to be honest with you, I mean, I have my own personal account because I've got personal stuff, but I also do a lot. Like that's only where I operate. My team has another one. And as I'm building, so I'm curious. So this is ChatGPT. So as
Mhm.
I'm building bots over there, and so actually before I even ask this question, let's dive into this because when people start using these tools, they'll usually start with the chat feature. But
Mhm.
and I actually don't have a Claude account. I'm one of the marketers that hasn't created 50 accounts across all the different levels. So I'd love to hear your thoughts here. When somebody arrives on Claude, on ChatGPT, you're basically given almost like a search bar, like how you would on Google, and you start
Yep.
a conversation. But you also can create an actual bot and like create your own GPT that's dedicated for something very specific. And so I'm wondering if Claude, it's very similar to that.
Um, I don't have any like specific like Claude agents or anything like that. But like a Claude skill is somewhat similar in the way that you have a custom GPT. So
Mm,
like I'm trying to think of an example here. So like if I want to build out a voice AI agent that is going to handle phone calls and inbound calls and outbound calls, right? I could on ChatGPT, you could build a custom GPT that is programmed with the SOP to build out the functionality for that specific agent or client that you're building the agent for. Um, in Claude, I have a voice AI agent skill that is programmed with that same knowledge and can
interesting.
is programmed to like give me the exact output I need to go and program the agent I want to build.
And just for clarity, can you help people understand what is a custom GPT and skill? You know, they're kind of synonymous, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Like, what's the difference between that versus just going in and having a conversation? What's the benefit of having a skill or a custom GPT versus just going into a random chat and talking to the tool?
Yeah, when you're building out a custom GPT or a skill, it's programmed with that like exact data, and you can feed it certain files or knowledge bases.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you like if you were to just go into a chat every time, you would have to constantly like, here's that information again. Here's the link to that uh, API documentation, or here's the link to that like instruction or something like that. Custom GPT is like the shortcut. You could just program all that stuff. You could upload spreadsheets. Like if you had a client roster, you could upload that sheet of all your clients or all your customers, and they would just know all that stuff.
Yes. I love that. And it's such a worthy endeavor to take time to create that. Really, truly. And I probably, this is probably one of the most important things we can do in terms of we ourselves as the owner operator of the business, but also, I mean, maybe even you would say it the other way. It's one of the most important things your team can do, but it's also important for us. Like to your point about orchestration, the fact that it knows every person on your team, it knows your goals, it probably knows your clients, and then it really can serve as a real assistant, in real time.
Oh yeah.
Serves you. And so it's like, man, leveraging the power of this tool changes everything. At least it has for me, Mike. And I'm curious about the impact that it has for you, literally from a top-down perspective. A lot of people are talking about, have your team do it. You don't need to know. But man, there's something where it really serves me on a personal level too, where because it knows my parents, and it knows what they like and love and how I want to be in relationship with them, it can customize a whole weekend for us like that if I stay where we're going. And so it's beyond just that. It's orchestrating my personal life. And I love that you said orchestrating, because it is like a conductor in so many ways. So I'd love for you to kind of lean into that a little bit too, in terms of the benefits of the leader of the organization, understanding, again, you don't need to be so dynamic. It's just having an understanding of the power of this tool and starting to think this way.
Yeah, you want to think of it as kind of like just like a Claude or ChatGPT, like that is just like adding gas to the fire. Basically, it's helping you like flesh out ideas. You don't want to completely remove like 100% of the critical thinking or problem solving that you should be doing on your own, but it's really just to help you like, oh, I didn't realize I could do that, or here are my options. I'm going to decide which I think is the best. That's constantly like a road I'm going down. Like I'll suggest one thing, and I've programmed my Claude to give me like the the for that solution, but like it plays devil's advocate with me and
I
says
love
like
that.
here's why I wouldn't do that. So like you have a little bit more, it gives you a little bit more context, or a little bit like, gives you options basically.
Right.
Or it'll recommend a hybrid approach or something like that. So that's really what I use it for. And Claude, ChatGPT, like you can connect everything to other tools that you use. So the most recent use case I have for this is, since my entire team is remote, we have a lot of tasks, and our project management lives inside ClickUp. But then we also use Notion for kind of like our knowledge base, with like all our SOPs and all the ins and outs of our agency. So the one thing my team was worried about was having to like, is this like, once we added Notion, is that double work? Am I going to have to like, handle task management in ClickUp and in Notion? But how we kind of handled that was I hooked up Claude to both, and I had Claude make edits, had direct access to ClickUp, and it was building out like all the task management I wanted to get done in ClickUp. I didn't have to open up ClickUp at all. Claude connected right in there, made all the updates I wanted. And then to set up the automation, it gave me step-by-step instructions to build out an automation in make.com, where it would sync task updates from ClickUp automatically to Notion. So nobody has to do double work. Once you update a task in ClickUp from in progress to complete, that's going to sync right to Notion. And you're going to see that same data.
Okay, cool. That's amazing. It really, really is. And I'm even thinking, I'm thinking about this, Mike. There's, with a lot of the trades companies I've worked with, there's a lot of, I guess you could say there's a lot of older systems that we're using, that pretty much the only tool that they're using is maybe Salesforce. and then Office 365. Office 365 is what I've seen a lot of what people are using for their email platforms and like SharePoint, and that's where everything's being housed.
Right.
And, you know, when you think about, okay, how are we doing the transition? And I'd actually like to camp out here for a moment because I'm curious what you're seeing. You know, when I've dove into companies, I've found that some of the biggest problems happen to be between the handoff from sales to production. But it's not like they would go into ClickUp and put you know, they know the task, right? So a lot of times though, there's not a real solid dedicated place where they're collecting these effectively, like I like to think of it as a customer profile or customer record of like, hey, this profile is used for every single touch point of the customer journey. From the call center, the second the form comes in or the second they answer the phone, and I'll talk to you about your phone system here in a little bit, but from the second that lead comes in, now every bit of data around that person is being tracked in one place so that sales are adding to it. The project manager can see what the conversations were that the sales had, because there's nothing more frustrating for a customer than to say, I already told you this. Now you're passing me on to the next person. I've already said this 3 times. Like it's so frustrating. And so I would love to hear from you. You know, a lot of times that's been kind of the missing piece of the puzzle as I'm looking at the full customer journey. I like to think of it as, you know, the lead comes in, it's like water in a bucket, and there's 5 buckets a lot of times for home service businesses. The first bucket is the lead comes in, it's the call center or the form, or somehow they're engaging with that lead. The second bucket is sales. They're going to the appointment. They're actually reviewing the job, looking at everything. And then this bucket can be interchangeable depending on the business, but then it's quotes and actually building up you got to do some semblance of design sometimes. So you're kind of doing the proposal side, quote, you land at the sale. The fourth bucket is production and fulfillment. The fifth bucket is, okay, how do we turn that customer into a referral? How do we ensure we get that review? How do we make them really love us? Maybe even sign up for the maintenance program so that they're ongoing in terms of revenue, but also in terms of us being able to serve them, and then thus them being able to tell people about us. So when I'm talking about this system in place, the communication that's being done throughout the life cycle, it's like how much water is spilling with each turn of the bucket, you know, how much is falling out, how much water are we losing? So I'd love to hear your thoughts in that regard in terms of like, where could tools like ClickUp be used for the back office or even, you know, for the life cycle of the customer? Because maybe you've got the customer record in, you know, I know some people use CoCentral, other people use other CRMs, but how can people keep track of those kind of menial tasks that just need to get done? Is it, I don't know. I think that this is an important topic around project management and just task management. You know, it's like, oh, don't forget to sign up for that BBB award, you know, things like that are going to fall off your plate.
Yeah. If it was me, and we just started a lighting company. So now I'm excited to get that up and running here on Long Island because, you know, all of our clients are contractors. Now, like, we can go to our clients and say, hey, these are all the things that we're doing for our lighting company. Like, if you do them too, like, you'll see the same success. Like, we're going to walk the walk with our clients. So if I was doing that for myself, you know, if you think about like a Service Titan CRM or House Call Pro or one of those, like all these major tools have those, without getting too technical, like they have those kind of connections that you can hook up to AI or ChatGPT. So if it was me, I would hook up my CRM or project management tool like Monday.com or whatever you use, hook that up to Claude and use it the same way and have Claude. You know, you could even add the Claude app on your phone, and I would just say like, hey Claude, like, you know, update this customer's contact notes with, you know, we just bid on the roof or something like that, you know, and have Claude do it for you. That's the best part is I could very easily go into ClickUp. I could easily go into my CRM and do that stuff, but having Claude hooked up is
this is huge.
Just get it done the right way.
It's really, really huge because I haven't gotten to this level of using, using Claude. And so you would recommend Claude for this? Because I know that you said you're familiar with Grok and Perplexity Chat and all of that, but Claude's.
Yeah, that's my personal preference. I started using Claude more because I found it to be better at writing content than ChatGPT
I've
when we
heard
were writing blog posts. Yeah, when we were writing blog posts or homepage content or something, I just really liked how detailed it was.
that. Okay.
And then even like once you this is the coolest part. Like once you figure out, you go back and forth with ChatGPT and you finally get the output that you wanted, then your next message is going to be, okay, like now write the prompt for me to do this the right time, the next time.
Yes.
And it tells you, here's how I want you to
Okay.
talk to me. And now you have that template and you can save that and use it again next time.
I love that. That's so good. I was doing some training specifically around ChatGPT, just because it's honestly a lot of people have that to start with. And so I was
Yep.
doing some training around helping business development managers just have a personal bot for themselves or agent for themselves. And I told them, I was like, save the prompts that were like, save what, because we'll say, like, can you repeat back to us your understanding so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page. But then I was like, save
Mhm.
all of that. Save everything that they're giving back to you about who you are, your business, your services, what's your why, all of that. Like put it somewhere else so that you can easily put that into Claude and you can easily
Mhm.
translate it to other AI tools because you're doing the work, whether you're building out a Claude skill or building out a chat, custom GPT. And so
Yep.
saving that somewhere. I love that advice of like, can you create the prompt so we can do it right the first time next.
Well, and
So
that's your shortcut. Instead of you having to like copy and paste that prompt in every time, if you do make a GPT or create a Claude skill, program the GPT with that prompt. So that way you just go there every time and just say, all right, here's the customer information and plug it into the template that we just created.
love it. So good. And so the integration with Claude, how much are you guys training Claude in advance around the business before doing the API connection? And I'm assuming it's through an API, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much everything is.
Yeah.
You're saying how much did it know about like my company before we started connect on that?
And even like knowing the role, like because I'm thinking, so for those of you who are just joining, Mike was talking about how on Claude, you can effectively create custom skills where it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you, this skill is dedicated maybe for blog writing, or this skill is dedicated towards, honestly, it could even be sending emails or creating content for, our clients in this particular vertical or about aggregate peers, for example. Whereas this other one is much more so dedicated to creating content for rigid inclusions, something like that.
Yeah.
How much are you like creating the skill very specifically, or is it just a skill for a company that you then connect over to the account?
Yeah, it's kind of like an ever evolving process. Like if I was starting from scratch, I would like just go all in on like, hey, let's do an interview and like ask me everything about the company. But
Yeah.
as I've kind of like gotten more into the weeds with Claude, or like, it even has a skill for like just SEO knowledge. It has a skill for like our process specifically. So if I make updates, I'll start a chat. Hey, this is new stuff I want to add to your skill moving forward, and then it'll update it itself,
Nice.
which
Okay.
is nice. And then Claude even has like it's kind of like a library of like possible connections that you could do. Like if you hate accounting and you wanted to hook up your QuickBooks account or like Stripe,
Hmm.
hook it up and like, hey, can you create this invoice for me? And now you don't have to do accounting. You can just have Claude create the invoice. This is not financial advice. I don't do this. But like you could if you really wanted
I
to.
love that. I love that so much. And with Claude, it's more secure than chat. That's what I've been hearing kind of across the waters.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I trust it.
Yeah. I know on ChatGPT there is a setting you can turn off in your settings, which is like allow for your chat to be training model for others.
Mhm.
And I turned that off because I was like, I don't
Yeah.
want, I don't want that. Cool. This has been super, super helpful. So effectively, take the time, do an interview process with Claude. And I'm assuming you would do that as you're creating the skill. It would be, let's go through, ask me what you need to know about me in order to best serve me for, creating copy for our website or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then go through all those possible connectors, like I don't really use it to like draft emails for me or anything, but like if you're a contractor and you want to like tell Claude, hey, draft an email to this customer, or like
Mm-hmm.
send an email to this sales rep, like, hey, we just got an offer, or we just got our offer accepted, like go out on the job, or
Yeah.
something like that. You can connect your calendar. You could connect. Sales data, different sales tools, different CRMs. If you use Canva for graphic design, you can connect your Canva account, spin up images and whatever else you need it for.
Nice. The thing that I really love that Mike said is that when your team is boots on the ground, this is where your team can use it. Really that microphone saying, hey, update the record to update, Susan King, that she actually ended up, we came for plumbing in the basement, but she actually ended up needing plumbing upstairs. There's a leak up there. Contact whoever, whatever the task is. You can update the record and then also include the action. But it's going to do it for you rather than you having to sit down, find the app, pull it up, and put it all in manually.
Yeah.
I really, really love that. And then I'm assuming it gets a little bit more complicated if you want to have it actually complete. Like, for example, if we wanted it to reach out to Joey because Joey is going to be the one to invoice Susan King for this second plumbing job, it wouldn't actually do the communication, would it? Unless, like, I guess you can set up the workflows in there that would allow for it to happen.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, I mean, there's different messaging app like connections you could set up. Like we use Slack internally, so I
Mm-hmm.
could connect Slack, and then have Claude send a message to a specific channel or a specific
Yeah.
person. So there's that way to use it. There's other ones too. And I would say a shortcut too for going back and forth is using images. So like I screenshot stuff just to save time. Like instead of me trying to explain it,
Yeah.
I'll I'll take a picture of my screen and be like, this is what I'm seeing. And it reads images. So I'll be like, oh, you need to change this setting, or like,
Mm-hmm.
swap out this link for this link. It'll tell you like flat out, depending on what you're
Yeah.
doing. So I use that a lot. And then it's not like a must, but like I just started using this tool, Whisperflow,
Mm.
and it's just like a dictation tool. So like I turn that on, and then I just hold my function key down, and if I know I'm gonna like go off and it's too much to type, I'll just start talking. And Whisperflow, like, it cleans up what you're saying. So like if I'm listing things out, you'll see the bullet points in the
Nice.
message. It'll take out all the uhs and ums and all that, and it just makes a nice message back.
And is that Whisperflow, is that in lieu of Claude, or is that integrated with Claude so that when you talk to Claude, Whisperflow is already on the back end doing the
Yeah,
cleanup?
Whisperflow is just like a dictation app on my
Okay.
computer. So any it could be a Word document, it could be a text message, it could be a Claude chat, anywhere like you have that that
Mm-hmm.
line just kind of like ready to type. You
Yeah.
just hold your button down and just let it, just let it go.
Nice. So it would be an extension, right? Like it would actually be an extension on, like, if I'm doing a Word document, Whisperflow would be an extension that's already in there, kind of like Grammarly. I don't know if you've used that, but I really love Grammarly. It's an extension
Yeah.
in my Word doc, and it automatically provides the recommended edits. Does it do that with Whisperflow, or do I need to go to the Whisperflow app?
I have it. Yeah, I have the desktop app. So like I have a MacBook, and then like at the bottom where I have like Chrome and Slack and all that, Whisperflow is right there, and you open it up and you'll see it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, works the same way.
Nice. Well, that's super. I thank you so much for just the very, very practical application that you're talking about, Mike. I mean, it's so important. And it's so helpful, like I said earlier, for people who are just looking at this thing and like, I don't even know where to start. I love the interview approach. You know, what do you need to know about me to be able to be effective in helping me? Like, that's just a really, really good line to start. And then it will say, okay, well, what's your name? And then you can just go ahead and have conversations. I would love to hear specifically how your team is using AI to answer phones.
To answer phones, yeah. So we like to set up voice agents because those can operate 24/7.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can have them. An agent can handle multiple calls simultaneously, and our agents are directly integrated with like our different marketing softwares and stuff and our CRM. So um, when we talk about like one of the most impactful like immediate use cases for a voice agent or AI and automations for any business is really like speed to lead, like we talked about. So I have one set up where as soon as like a lead comes in from a Facebook ad, they get a call from the voice agent, basically talking to them. Hey, saw you just filled out your information. Like, when can we schedule an appointment? If that doesn't get answered, they'll get a text message, an email. It's not just voice. There's the other communications built in, so that way we constantly, we're automatically following up with leads, and just not missing any calls.
Right.
Especially in home services. There's so many emergency services that if you're not open at 10 p.m. and someone's basement is flooding,
Yes,
who's going to get that call?
exactly. Mike, this is where I really, really find so much value in what you're doing, to exactly that point, because I know from the consumer's perspective, I will call and call and call until I talk to somebody. And I was stopped in my tracks from calling when I received an automated text message.
Mhm.
And I was able to schedule right then and there. And so that actually stopped my pursuit. I wasn't necessarily, by that point, I wasn't even looking for a human. I just wanted somebody to contact me. It was wild. Like,
Yeah.
I called 5 or 6 companies. And so at that point, the customer is frustrated because people in your industry don't have, not yours, but in general, your industry,
Mhm.
folks listening, automation is starting to take over. But the more we can make it personal, that's now like, man, if we do it personal right at the beginning, how
Yep.
much better. And so what are kind of the first steps of people being able to start implementing this with you guys? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So essentially, honestly, it's a very similar process to like what we were just talking about, like having Claude interview you. Like, we want to know all the ins and outs. Like, what does a typical like customer phone call look like? Who's answering the phone? Um, what knowledge should the agent be trained up
Right.
on? Like, especially if you know m- even if you're not a service business, and you have maybe a medical practice, and you want to give driving directions over the phone, or you're an event venue and you want to like give information on parking and not like bury your actual like guest services team with these like mundane questions. Train agent on all your frequently asked questions, everybody who's on the team, what the typical process is, train it on empathy and like, just being like super short and sweet and just giving valuable information. It could really, an agent could know just as much about the company as really anybody else without giving like, you know, I
Yeah.
guess like actual like on the job recommendations, but enough to like, all right, it sounds like you're having this problem. I'm going to get this. I'm going to transfer the call to our project manager. He'll be able to help you out. Like knowing what the route tree looks like, who to transfer calls to.
Right.
There's a lot of like flexibility there. Or it could just be as simple as book calls off this online calendar, or collect their information and then just send me that in an email when a call comes in. There's a lot of
Mhm.
those capabilities.
So good. And it just allows, again, for ideally the personal touch point, like having a question even in that form or some kind of way that they're calling or engaging with you. Having a personal question, I think, really, really helps to
Mhm.
just make the customer feel connected. So when people are experiencing the person answering, like the agent answering, or just that initial engagement, how are you guys allowing for kind of that emotional connection?
It helps that our agents, like, they don't sound robotic. It sounds like someone is actually answering the phone.
Yeah.
And, um, we also, like I was saying, like, short and sweet. Like, no one wants to like talk to an agent and then have all of that information just regurgitated back. It's like,
So what
keep
you're
the conversation.
saying is,
Yeah, exactly. Like, keep the conversation moving. Like,
yeah,
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Great, let me get you set up, and
yeah,
then just qualify them, ask them the questions to get the information that you need, and just keep the booking process moving along.
so
And
good.
I think what's also super helpful is like now it's just a time saver for your team. I don't think it doesn't necessarily replace anyone. It's
Right.
more, how many calls a day do you get from a solicitor or a marketing agency or someone like trying to get your business? You don't have to handle, and you never have to pick up any of those calls ever again because the agent can be programmed to just shut those people down.
So good. So good. And Mike, I'm thinking of two very specific case studies where one, we were just opening a new office in a new territory. And it was like, man, what the heck is happening? We're getting leads. The digital marketing was working. The Google ads were functioning, firing, and we were paying pretty penny for them because we were brand new.
Sure.
And what we found was that I went in and manually listened to the voicemail. So one, they were calling after 5:30 p.m., which is very normal. A lot of
Yeah.
people are home after the work hours that your team is working. And so they were calling at 5:30. They were getting the voice message. But what I realized is that it took them 43 seconds before they could leave a voice message. It was,
Oh wow.
and so they were jumping off at 30 seconds. And another case study that we found was that if you answer the call in under 10 seconds, you have a much higher likelihood of converting that customer. Just being able to, again, it's all about what data do you have access to then be
Hmm.
able to analyze. And
Right.
so what you guys are doing is just so incredibly important because it really moves the needle. Speed to answer. And then also it allows for the follow-up can be, man, now you're that much more intentional with the follow-up with a real person, or maybe even the agent does it. I've actually been, I was talking with a pest control company the other day, and they were like, well, go through the process. So I signed up for the process, and I've received 4 or 5 different text messages from them in just a week, which has been great. And they're funny. They have little
Hmm.
puns on pest control. It's been funny and cute, but it's been staying in touch with me because that's one of the biggest things is that if you're doing it all manual, man, how many days go by? How long does it take to actually call them back? And how do you prioritize? How do you know, to your point, with the myriad of lists, how can you tell between the marketing agencies or the solicitors versus real leads? So
Yeah.
I love what you guys are doing. Mike, thank you so much for this conversation. I've loved it. How can people learn more about you?
They can check us out on our website, primedigitalseo.com, and send us a message through there. That's probably the fastest way because that goes right to our inbox. Or they can look us up at the same handle on Instagram at Prime Digital SEO and take messages there.
Wonderful. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time. I've loved this conversation. It was just so practical. So y'all, thank you so much for joining us today. We will see you next time as we continue talking about how to grow and strengthen your home service business. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.